Live now. We're live now. It is the Kent Beck Scrum. Sam and Michael and Anar. I have bashed away at the generic plans thing on website one, and it's basically there, I think. Of course, then you see lots of other things, but that's kind of, yeah, I'm feeling a bit calmer having sort of got through that. What else? Yeah, I've also I've moved all the mob programming videos over to a new Agile Ventures channel on YouTube, and I'm sorting that out. And I'm also helping Susanna try and turn a sort of a sketch of like a possible potential paid project into a set of user stories in the new paid projects channel on Agile Ventures Premium. I think you're all premium members. You can check out that new channel, paid projects in Agile Ventures Premium. Yeah, and I've been reviewing some pull requests, looking at Anar's things on log support, Anar and Marcelo on log support, just looking through Matt and Michael's thing. Yes, and yeah, that's me. Who was? I think Anar was maybe in next. So let's check in with Anar. How are things going with you, Anar?
It's fine now, although I feel a little bit dizzy.
Oh
I
dear.
think I caught a cold, yeah, and was working on this feature, and yeah, I've noticed that you've used a gem for sorting functionality,
Mm-hmm.
and it turns out there is a newer version that actually incorporates the date sorting as well. So I'm thinking to give it a try.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And maybe we will, maybe in its current implementation, you do the humanize function on Rails, but I've noticed that this new gem has its own humanize function. So maybe after I try it out, maybe we can get rid one of those. Maybe we can make a cleaner code on the Rails part, and we'll just we'll just feed the dates timestamp and let the JavaScript do the job.
Fantastic. Yeah, that will be lovely. Yes, sometimes things are easier than they seem. Sometimes they're harder than they seem. Hopefully, in this case, it'll be easier. Good stuff. Well, I hope hope you feel better. It's definitely that time of year for colds and coughs and things. Yeah, hopefully it will turn out to be not chewing ginger. That's my recommendation for managing illnesses. Is what I do. Good stuff. Thanks for the report. And Michael, how are things going with you?
Good. So I was helping Matthew for the Scrum, bashing his PR into some shape. At a first pass, I gave some feedback on it. In terms of, I think it's not all the way there. I think there are potential bugs still in it, as I commented on, that could have tests wrapped around them before we deploy it. And then there's just issues with testing and kind of all the. I didn't really get into that in the review yet, but all the technical debt that we accrued as I basically just wielded a giant hammer and smashed it into.
Sure. Well, it's good to get something out, and then I think generation. I think as like with writing a story, sometimes you just got to get some stuff out, and then you can do other things with it. But that's good. We can all. I think definitely we'll have a website one coordination activity at the end of the Scrum. So
yeah,
cool. Matt, anything to add?
No, it's. I think it's just what he said. It needs some more work.
Sure.
Yeah, we don't need to get into details.
Yeah, we can do that. We should do. I think a review of the board and of all the open pull requests.
I made a comment on your pull request, and then I realized there's probably a lot of things like that, features that you could add. So it's.
But still, I think still useful for them to be mentioned. I think there's a lot of value. I think people tend to be on the I won't bother. But yeah, I think it's the partly for the project team. The more eyes that there are on the pull request, there's like it's sort of shared understanding about what's going on in the code base.
Now I know what you're doing a little better. Yeah,
exactly. All stuff that will go into my book on agile management of open source projects. I gotta write it all down. There we go. Excellent. Thanks, Matt. And Sage is here as well. Hey, Sage, how are things going with you?
Going well. I've been reviewing pull requests, making a little more sense of that big mess of code that turns out the part that I was interested in is actually 500 lines of PHP that I need to turn into JavaScript.
Oh, right.
And then yesterday I started putting together some ideas for a grant proposal,
Cool.
which if you have a chance sometime, I'd like to chat with you a little bit about, because you mentioned to me about like being interested in collaborating in grant proposals.
Sure.
And I wanted to hear from you what sort of shape you had imagined there.
Sure, absolutely. Yes, indeed. Well, we can certainly talk about that. Yeah, I would love to talk about that. Anything else? Anything blocking you? Any immediate plans?
No, nothing blocking me immediately.
All right, there we go. Well, I think that's our Scrum. So yes, we've got and we've all finished up in plenty of time. Yeah, so there's a certain amount of website one coordination that we have to do. Anna, I guess you're not blocked and you're okay. I think Michael and Matt and myself, we're all free to do stuff. Anna and Sage, are you both planning to do coding now? Are you free for collaboration?
Honestly, I don't feel really good now. Not in the shape to do that.
Okay. Oh well, yeah. You have a bit of a rest, Anna, and we'll come back to you. Sage, you're going to say you're going to be coding now?
I'm not. I'm going to be working more on this grant application now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Actually, I guess I would describe myself as blocked by wanting to talk to you.
Okay.
About that.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I think the main sort of bulk of this is basically asking Wikimedia Foundation for a grant to fund sort of the continued development of a project and be able to devote more time to focusing on features and improvements that are more relevant for sort of like the global version of it, which is the one that is not the one that my organization is like sort of directly benefiting from, but it's like sort of the broader community one that we feel like we want to also make as good as possible, but we don't like devote core development time to features that are exclusively relevant for the other version of it. But this would be like, well, we're willing to sort of set aside a lot of my time and other contract development time for that in exchange for grant.
And so how long do you think we would need to, if we were to chat about it, would we need 5 minutes, 10 minutes? What sort of length of conversation do you think would be helpful for you at this time?
Yeah, 5 or 10 minutes would be just about right. I just want to get sort of an idea of what kinds of things for a grant proposal that would be collaborative, that you would want out of it, and like what the sort of what we would get out of sort of going in on that with you.
Yeah, sure. Well,
because I think it would be easy to carve out a small portion of it and say, well, we want to sort of try this experiment with Agile Ventures, and so this portion of it would be earmarked for that. If it seemed like it makes sense for everybody.
Yeah, that's great.
I've just sort of very preliminary at this stage, so I don't want to
no, totally. It would be like we would be having like an exploratory conversation, of which I have. I have many of these, and many of them come to nothing, but it's all good fun. Well, would it be good to have that discussion in the tail end of this Scrum in the next 5 minutes, or would you like to create a separate hangout? Yeah, should we do that now? Maybe Matt and Michael, basically in about 15 minutes. So I imagine let's have this conversation with. So you guys obviously can hang around or move off if you're interested, or the other way around. And then we'll have like a website one coordination hangout in about 15-20 minutes. Does that sound reasonable?
Sure.
If it matters, Sam, I have to do errands the rest of the afternoon, so I probably won't keep mine till tomorrow. So
okay, no problem. Well, you go off. I mean, Michael and I will look. We'll look through together more of the pull request and leave you some extra feedback. And no problem.
That's all. And I'll probably work on it tonight by myself. But
okay, cool. We'll leave some feedback.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Bye.
Yeah. So we'll Sage. Thanks, Matt. Take care. Yeah, Sage, you have the floor. I can answer questions, or I can just sort of speak randomly. But yeah, how can I help?
You can explain to me sort of what what kind of money or sort of arrangement in a grant application that you had in mind when you brought that up, and like what the like some numbers of like what would make sense for you to get involved, and like what the benefit would be for WikiEd.
Right. Well, I mean, I think let me sort of talk about some of the other different ways in which we've received money and funding or gone for applications in the past. I mean, so just recently, I put in a funding application to a group here in the UK, which is all about trying to help techno-social things move to the next level. And they rejected us, so I've already forgotten their name. But that was going to be for 50,000 UK pounds for that. Thanks, Alan. I'll take care. I hope you feel better soon. But there was going to be 50,000 UK pounds over the course of the next year to kind of basically take us up to the next level. Actually, I think part of the problem with that fund was that we were already, we're already at the stage where we've got, a certain number of people involved. That group was more like, if you've got a kind of a prototype idea and you want to make it into reality, then we'll provide you sort of funding for the 9 months or the year to do that. And so kind of almost we should have applied for it, like 3 years ago when we were just getting started. So that was like, that's a kind of infrastructure grant to try and build things out and scale them out. Other things like we do work for charities like the Locals. I probably mentioned it before. The Local Support is one of our oldest projects, and that does for our community network. And at one point, so there's a person who I still work with, but so he runs a lot of third sector, that's non-profit and charity stuff in the Harrow area, and he from one grant brought down like 2,000 UK pounds, and that allowed for specific a subsection of development of the volunteering component of the Harrow Community Network, and that was great. And we did a little bit of work there, and he got some of the things that he needed. I now have more recent discussions with him, and that we're talking about putting in for a grant application next year. It's part of a bigger several hundred thousand for helping disadvantaged people in the borough, and there's like going to be earmarked 40,000 UK pounds for that to develop actually a completely new system to help people who are under-resourced. So I mean, the amounts of money can be from quite small amounts to do sort of specific bits of development, or they can be larger amounts to create a whole thing from scratch, or they can be stuff for infrastructure for scaling out. So I mean, it's sort of we're open to anything synergistic, and I guess it's sort of probably the place to come from in some ways is how could Agile Ventures best support you better than we currently do, and to the extent that there are financial resources available for that, then we can direct more support and help in your direction.
Okay, so basically the likely sort of scenario would be something like, basically we just set aside some of the money that we have for technical development, and basically do that as sort of a contract with Agile Ventures, and then Agile Ventures has a system for paying people through that, or Agile Ventures would sort of, so that is the case?
I mean, that's how we've done it in the past. And so if there's a particular bit of like, we've got this stuff just needs to get done, and we need it done by a certain time frame and so on, while within the normal flow of Agile Ventures, you can kind of get volunteer support, and it sort of comes and goes, and it ebbs and flows and so on. Any charity group can earmark and say, right, here's this X amount, we need to get this done by this date, let's make it happen. And then we can manage the process of assembling a team, getting the people, and making sure it happens by the appropriate time.
Okay, and can you just tell me a little bit more about like sort of what that's like for the sort of like team dynamics and how that works? Like, what does the money sort of like go to? I mean,
yeah, so the money goes to the individual. So that, I mean, if I take the example of the Harrow Community Network local support thing, so there was the system already existed. We built it. It had certain level of functionality. There was not the original client of the system, but the other person said, look, this is a great system. What I want on top of it, I want to have this volunteering component, and here's some money for it. And we did an estimate for the whole thing based on the number of pairing hours it would take to make all of the different features. And in fact, actually, I was just showing it to somebody else. I can maybe this in terms of the money involved will be out of date, but maybe I won't. I can send you this.
Can I say something?
Oh, go on, Michael.
Yeah, so we basically estimated the stories that the client had wanted. They had provided a bunch of different stories, like, this is kind of our minimal set, this is our reach set, this is our, like, if we had the moon set,
Mm-hmm.
And we voted on points, and we said, well, we think roughly this is probably how many hours it would take, and this is our rate, how many pounds per hour. And we said, we basically added that all up, and then Sam added a certain percentage for overhead for Agile Ventures management, and then basically presented it to the client. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. So this is all the system. This was back in 2014 when we did it, and so this is specifically for the volunteers. And so what we would do is we do the whole Agile thing of voting and assigning points to each of the stories, and these stories linked up to things that we had in Pivotal Tracker and had user stories and scenarios and discussion on them. And, based on certain, an hourly rate for pairing and an overhead for Agile Ventures and so on, we came up with an estimate. And, they got, like with the couple of thousand, I think it was 4,000 that they got like the first couple of things built, and then, to their deadline. And then subsequent things were then on an ad hoc basis, and we've actually carried on in the background, tapping away at doing various of these things. But yeah, so we can cost stuff up, and then we can take care of remunerating the individual developers who work on the particular stories. Like what we would usually do is we would assign a pair to work on a particular feature, and then overhead obviously for managing that and getting it all to happen. I mean, this happens to be. I mean, I can potentially share this with you. This was 2014, so the rates and the percentages and so on will change. But that's the process that we've used in the past, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So then we would go through. We would probably have a project manager from Agile Ventures, if that worked,
right,
attached to it, and he would meet with someone like you, who would explain the stories and the situation, and then we would basically come up with the code to implement it. And we would, we would walk you through how it worked on the app, and you could, the whole Agile process of you saying, well, this isn't quite what we wanted, or this is perfect, we need more. And then you could also technically, I guess, review it, because you're a coder yourself, the quality of the code, and whether you wanted to pull it in or not.
Okay, cool. So that's helpful. I mean, so basically it would sort of work out more or less just like conventional like software contracting, except it would just be through Agile Ventures and working with like folks in this community.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would mean, unlike an agency or what have you that will have a number of staff there and do it, is it would be with people working remotely around the world. And, unlike an agency, a much higher commitment to transparency, because we're, all about open development and sort of allowing the whole crowd of everybody to learn from the process. So working on those couple of features, we did that, for that particular project, we did that transparently for everyone else to see and learn, and, involved everybody in the estimation process and the thinking about the amounts of money and so on. So as long as there's a commitment to open source and open development, we can also potentially offer, slightly cheaper rates than maybe one would get from an agency, to the extent that things need to be closed development or closed source, or even for perhaps rather than nonprofits, but for a business with a commitment to ethical sustainability, then the prices can tend to go up. But we're all about striking that balance between open learning and helping good causes around the world.
Yeah. So thank you. That was really helpful. And I just have like a couple other questions. So first I'll sort of share my like take on what you just explained, which is I think that I probably would not want to sort of like, if we got this grant, like spend money sort of through Agile Ventures like that.
Sure.
And that's just because I have you know, like people that work at comparable rates as contractors here in Seattle that I work with in person, and that already have sort of experience here, and that are sort of, you know, known quantities.
Sure.
And so I would, but are there like other ways that that sort of like would make sense for both of us that you see, or is that the only sort of model for working on something together that jumps out to you as like?
Well, I guess the other model is one where we try and direct more resources towards you. So, for example, you know, that we're working on this new set of plans to give like additional levels of support to nonprofits for code review, for DevOps, for these kinds of things. So maybe it's the case that you want, you know, rather than actually the work being done, but you want additional code review or different. I mean, I think the DevOps one I sort of assume is of less interest to you because you've kind of you're managing all that stuff. But like, if you want to hand off the maintenance of apps or get support on the maintenance, that's also something that we can do. I mean, what we have, there's a lot of through the MOOC, there are a lot of charities that have been built pieces of software by volunteer students on a part-time basis or what have you, and then they're like, okay, we want this to keep running, but the students have gone off and we need, you know, help and support there. So there's, you know, DevOps support that we can do. Something we've also done for companies is that they don't want us to develop the code. They've got their own coders that they, you know and trust, but maybe the coders are a bit junior and they want to have, you know, some more senior developers do code review on the existing code and give them, you know, and so we can do that as well. I mean, I guess the other thing that we can do is, you know, provide additional support in terms of directing and supporting the, you know, like if there is a set of volunteer coders who are starting to be interested in starting to, you know, build up and work on the WikiEDU dashboard, then we could provide more support in terms of running specific WikiEDU dashboard scrums, providing sort of like project management. You know, you can be working with the coders, the volunteers, and what have you, but providing project management. So there's all sorts of different things there. I guess those are all focused on the tech side. I mean, I guess the other angle is about, you know, some kind of collaboration where, I mean, the grants you would be going for would be to support learning of one kind or another. I mean, we're also about kind of open learning. Maybe that's a bit tenuous in terms of I guess you're very, very focused on learning in the context of academic institutions of one kind or another, right?
I mean, I think that we are also, to the extent that like we can leverage the tech work that we're doing and like make the case that we're also making an impact on like you know, like learning of like the development community and like developers. Like that's actually something that, even if just for the sake of like being able to make even a better case to Google about like why they should give us more money,
sure.
like that's an easy win. Like and I like my sort of overall focus right now, or like not sole focus, but one thing that basically I've been trying to do and will continue to try to do is to basically like see what can be done with our project as sort of a open source like volunteer mixed with what we're doing like long-term project, right?
Sure. So
like making it as like building up as much of a development community around it as possible,
right?
And like seeing sort of what the limits of that are and what makes sense. And so, you know, like we have a community of people who are interested in using it, many of whom are also technically competent, which is, you know, the Wikipedia editing community. And so, you know, like making it sort of easy for them to dive in and do things, but then also trying out other things as well. So we've been doing Google Code-In, which is like for high school students. And actually we've had like a bunch of quite good pull requests in the last couple weeks from participants in that. And then I'm working with an intern for Outreachy, who's doing a project. And then I think I'm starting to be like I'm excited about the potential of like Agile Ventures as well, and I've already started to see some like cool things happening there. And I would say that actually the sort of like the project management bit would actually probably be the most
really?
Like project management and or like code review sides of it.
Right.
That's the stuff that like especially with the Agile Ventures community being sort of centered geographically mostly on the other side of the world from me means that like having some people or having some sort of support for like being regularly involved in doing sort of the organizing and people herding in a very different time zone from me would probably be useful. But okay, so that's all helpful stuff to know. I think probably what I will plan on doing is writing this grant proposal in a pretty general way, and then if we actually get it, we'll then we can talk further about like what makes sense to actually like do an arrangement.
There is
Go on, Michael.
I was going to suggest maybe sponsorship makes sense then.
Oh, then that's another thing that we do as well.
He has sponsors such as Dree, which is a SaaS platform for hosting websites that's starting to bootstrap itself in England, I think. And he basically meets with them and tests out their app, tries to herd people from Agile Ventures onto their platform and see what the issues are. So in terms of if you want to just directly buy time from Sam, basically, to organize things, that could also be a possibility.
I mean that's I hadn't. Thanks for mentioning that, Michael. I mean that's another thing that we do have we have a number of sponsors. I mean, Dree is the new one who's putting some money in, and I mean there's an extent to which we can, part of that is we are kind of promoting Dree and RubyMine and Mentiv and Craft Coding. There's certain sponsors that we have, and we promote them to the members in our community, and so they appear on the website and in the mailings and so on. I don't know if that makes sense so much for you, but we can put together plans. In terms of, I think, the herding people, the project management, and so on. I guess the thing I was just going to ask you, Sage, is in terms of, I mean, the grant that you're thinking of putting together is a grant that's designed to sort of, it's like to bring money to make the Wiki EDU dashboard continue for some number of years. Is that's rather than being focused on helping, let's say, a particular subset of the community, or it's sort of you're looking for a sort of a please fund more of the great stuff we're already doing. Is that what you're thinking?
It's somewhere in between that. So we have, I think. So let me. We've gone past the 5 or 10 minutes, but if you don't mind going longer, I'll show a little something.
Yeah.
So we have this. We have 2 instances of the dashboard, and one is this programs and events dashboard is what it's called. And this is for the global sort of Wikimedia community. So we have like events that are happening in all kinds of languages. See here, some, like, let's see, I think this is a Arabic version. And so people are using this all over the world. And this is the version that like what these people are doing is not directly relevant to Wiki Education Foundation. Like we're limited to like working with higher education in the United States and Canada.
Right.
But so we've worked a little bit with the Wikimedia Foundation and a little bit just basically on my own like making sure that as much as possible, like we can make this also work for these other instances, right? So we like made sure that we worked with some people at Wikimedia to get started on internationalization, and then I basically brought that to completion so that we have, you know, you can change languages, and like see the interface, you know, in whatever language, and like fixing bugs for, let's see, you know, if you switch to a right to left language,
sure,
then it'll still work, and it flips the user interface.
Sure.
And so there's a next sort of set of things, which basically involves getting some of the features that we use but are disabled on this site, like ready to go so that they would work on any language of Wikipedia, the stuff that like edit Wikipedia and that kind of thing.
Sure.
And the goal would be basically to enable people who are doing similar education programs working with students in organized courses, make sort of the special features for courses also work on this international one like they do on ours. And so basically it would mean setting aside a lot of my time, and the time that we, like, you know, the contracting that we do, and instead of just focusing all of our time, like, or almost all of our time on the things that are relevant for us, like we'll spend some time working on stuff for the global Wikipedia community.
Right. And then so that might appeal to a funder who was like interested in global education. And
well, I mean, in this case, the funder is Wikimedia Foundation. And so basically, like they did a little bit of work and are still wrapping it up from their like community tech team, which is sort of a team that like hops from project to project of whatever sort of the community feels like is really high priority at the moment. They run like a survey every year, and anyway, they're like sort of a jack of all trades team,
right?
That does like little bits of work on specific things to ease user pain points,
right?
So they did some work on this, but they did not sort of have super high velocity because they were like mostly unfamiliar with the technology stack and that kind of thing. And it looks like because of that, like they don't want to do it next year,
right?
More. And so basically this is saying, okay, well, if that's the case, like we're willing to sort of step up and do this stuff, you know, if we can have some of our costs offset.
Right. Yeah, I think that totally answers my question. Yeah, so you would put that grant into a committee and you say, hey, we can do this sort of stuff that you thought was a good idea, and you know, but like there. And so, for example, you know, there might be an allocation for, you know, and we want to build a sustainable open source community around, rather than just like paying somebody to fix this one-off, that's it, and then it doesn't go anywhere. But like, we want to do community development, we want an open source project, and so, you know, a line item could be collaborating with Agile Ventures. Agile Ventures is going to help us build the open source community on that, what have you, you know, do a bit of project management. Yeah, that's so. And as I say, like I think you're saying, you know, if you make it sufficiently general, then when we get it, we can, you know, hash out the details. Yeah, great stuff. Well, you know, if you want to run, you know, if you the grant application and you want to run it by me and get, you know, feedback or inputs, you know, feel free to send it my way if that's appropriate, or not. Otherwise, you know, yeah, I mean, I'm glad to have been able to brainstorm a few different ways in which we could collaborate going forward. Yeah, just let me know what you like. Cool, great. Yeah, I think, you know, I'll go ahead on my side with all the hoops that I need to jump through first, and then and if it looks like it's gonna pan out, then I'll get back to you and we'll talk about the details of what an arrangement will look like, and talk money and that kind of thing. Sure, sounds good. Excellent. All right, great stuff, Sage. Yeah, I'm going to get my cup of tea now, and Michael, I'll maybe about 10 minutes. I'll start another hangout, and we'll do one. All right, thanks, Michael. Great input. And Sage, have a wonderful afternoon now. I guess. Morning. See you soon. Yeah, morning. There you go. All right. Bye for now. Take care. Bye.